Now we go for a cooking show. I don't know if you saw that on the program, but we're going to cook with unicorns. And our organizer, who is of course a very seasoned technology journalist, Robin Wauters, will come on stage and we'll talk with Olivier Pailhes, CEO of Aircall, Zhong Xu, CEO of Deliverect, and Narek Verdian, the CTO of Glovo. And I really hope that they will reveal the recipe of that secret sauce of unicorns. Let's find out. Let's welcome them.
Thank you very much for coming to this cooking masterclass. I never thought I'd be on stage with a cooking recipe thing. In my defense, this is an all-male panel. We really tried hard to avoid it, but we have a very, very high caliber set of people here to talk about it, so I hope that makes up for it. Olivier from Aircall, thank you so much for joining. You were previously with Boston Consulting Group, ArcelorMittal, and this is basically your first company you founded, is Aircall. It's already a unicorn, so not bad. But they're building a cloud-based phone system for modern businesses, I guess. And Zhong Xu, a local unicorn, a Belgian tech company called Deliverect, basically delivering sort of the shuffles to all the other unicorns, I guess, in the food delivery space. Narek, CTO of Glovo, who I think you all know, but multi-category delivery platform, operational in a lot of markets and based out of Barcelona himself. So thank you so much for joining, the three of you. We've had a lot of sessions on stage here to talk about very specific things, international scaling, how to keep culture and morale high when you're scaling fast, VC and investment, et cetera, et cetera. What I want to know from you is how you sort of deal with all of these things to build unicorns and maybe share some lessons with the audience. My first question, and I guess this is more for Olivier and Zhong as CEOs of the company, how do you sort of split your time, all the things I just mentioned, international expansion, culture, fundraising, dealing with customers, etc. How much of your time, how do you sort of divide your time between those? How do you decide what you focus on as a leader? Olivier, you want to go first?
Yeah, so and that's changing a lot as you get to scale. So it was 100% internally focused at first, up to 200 people. And then above that stage, started to refocus towards the outside. You start looking at competitors and investors and bankers and funds. Today, I would say it's 40% outside, 60% inside. I'm actually rather introvert, so I like the inside as well. And in the inside part, what I spend most time on is product and culture team. So again, I'm not a big salesperson. I'm lucky to have a co-founder who's a great sales and growth person. So that's what I focus mostly.
Yeah, which also speaks to the complementarity of the leadership team, I guess.
Yeah.
That's very important. Zhong?
Yeah, I think I'm very bad at multitasking. So for me, is actually marathons with sprint. I think I look at certain moment what's really key, what's the one thing that can make or break us. So although we keep relation with investors when I'm doing fundraising, it's 90% of my time, and you don't need to call me. That's what I'm going to do for the next quarter. That's all I do. And after that, I switch that completely. Then investors should not call me because I really answer. I'm very focused in company building, product, and especially hiring, because getting the team together, that's what matters.
Great. Narek, I assume as CTO, the answer is a bit different for you, but I still want to know how you sort of
yeah, absolutely.
what you focus on.
I think as leaders, as you grow, you really juggle with many different hats. And at some point, you lose count how many different hats you have to wear. But really, I tend to split my time with not only my team and scaling the team. Global engineering grew, quadrupled in the last 2.5 years, I think. But it's also spending time in all the local communities in 24 amazing countries that we operate in to just understand how the stuff that we build works in a local market. And I think that's a really good way to do that. And obviously contributing to a tech community overall, whether that's in Europe or globally. I think just being part of the conversations, and whether that's diversity in tech or that's growing European tech scene, I think it takes some of the time.
Great. Well, a related question is when you start scaling up, at some point you need to expand the leadership team beyond the founders and maybe the initial managers that you hire. Was that more difficult than just to grow sort of the team of engineers and developers and salespeople to find like the right leaders? How was that process for you internally? Maybe Zhong can go first.
Yeah, as it's not my first time, I think this time we started out with multiple co-founders. Found someone that really is expert in go-to-market, someone, my CTO and CIO really good at tech, so that we are very complementary. It's quite tough if you're a sole founder. I mean, congrats to the people that can do it, but it's painful, there's a lot of struggles, and having a complementary team just takes that away and allows you to go quicker, right? A lesson learned is, always try to hire for the person that you want to be a year from now, and not someone that can help you today, because often that's way too late.
Yeah. Olivier, same question.
Yeah, this really one thing that matters when you want to scale and keep on the fast growth rate is bringing new execs, which is very hard. We have a founding team of 4, and very cohesive, and made plenty of mistakes of hiring the wrong people. It's very hard to find people who are going to scale when you double every year, right? But suddenly, it happens. And my first key exec was my CMO, still here, 5 years, 6 years ago. And it changed our lives because we suddenly understood, like, okay, you don't have to be a founder to be committed to the company. You can be a great person, bringing a lot of expertise. And then over time, then the CEO job is really about filling the gaps and saying, okay, marketing is one, HR, okay, finance. And then try to get to a point where all these functions are covered. And then life becomes really much, let's say, nicer.
Much nicer. Question for you, Narek, because you worked as VP of Engineering at American Express, you were at Expedia, Hotels.com, which I wouldn't call startups or scale-ups. So Glovo must be a different beast to you as well. Did you have to adapt sort of the way you were as a leader, but also the way that you hired and retained people?
Yeah, I mean, I spent a decade in travel, which is incredibly, rewarding industry to be in. And now I spent a quick 1-year stint at American Express. Incredible company, 170 years old, right? Reinvented itself so many times, but it's night and day compared to Glovo. Glovo, it's light speed. Everything is about gas, taking risks, to create shared value for the communities we operate in, but also all sides of our marketplace. And I think it's telling. I personally always want to be in an environment where I get pushed outside of my comfort zone, right? Because that's where you learn. That's where you can be fulfilled. That's where you find rewards, rewarding experience. And that's what I want to create in a team. So I think that's it's paramount to have that in a culture.
Yeah. Okay, we're having a workshop on cooking with unicorns, recipe for a secret sauce. You can't learn how to cook without making mistakes. So I'll ask you, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made that you can share with aspiring entrepreneurs, so at least they make different mistakes and not the same ones? So what are some of the, I'm guessing there's many small things, but what is a big takeaway of something that you think you should have handled differently while you were scaling? Olivier?
Yeah, if I were to do another startup again, and again, it's all about hiring, really all about hiring. And the primary responsibility of a CEO for me, or founder CEO, is making sure we have the best executives and changing them when you need, or creating a function. And the things I typically have done badly was being too permissive in a sense, or waiting too long, or not realizing the need for a new role. Like we just hired a CRO 6 months ago. Well, that role should have been here a year ago. We lost some time, and now I'm so glad we have this role. Everybody's super happy. So it's really spending, for me, the biggest mistakes come from people, and especially executives, because they drive everything, the culture, the performance, the team spirit.
So yeah, make sure to get that right, yeah. Narek, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so many mistakes.
So many fuck-ups. What's the biggest one, Narek?
We actually report on fuck-ups every week. I changed, one of the things I introduced when I came to Glovo in tech overall, we send an update every week about some of our outcomes, but one of them we explicitly call fuck-ups. Obviously, we run about a lot of A/B test experimentation, and we have outcomes, but that's separate to actually taking initiative, risk, not asking for permission, but rather asking for forgiveness. Not only myself, I've been working in that sort of environment for a very long time, but it's the culture that we create in a team that's super important.
Great. Zhong, same question.
This is the last company I'm doing, so last time we made a lot of mistakes. So a couple of things I think we did better, and I still have a learning as well. Start very early on setting up the culture. Get external help. It's not in the Wauters. It's hard work, so you need to have a process for that. Getting experienced people early on, I think that's key. Don't assume you know everything. I mean, it's very easy. You look at salaries, experienced people cost a lot, but don't think about that. Think about what they can bring in your business. I think one of the things I learned this time, because we scaled very quickly, we only exist 3 years and we're 500 people, get quicker L&D team up and running. We suddenly were 100 people, and I had one person to do onboarding. Now it's a team of 7, but I regret not scaling or setting that up when we were 20 people. So that would have accelerated even more the business.
No, got it. Okay. So mistakes made, but you still got to unicorn status. How much of that is down to luck and just good timing of your customers, the market, your go-to-market strategy, just right timing? How much of it really is just down to circumstances rather than whatever you can do within the company? Olivier, maybe?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's pure luck. It's pure input.
So you have nothing to do with it. Could have been.
It could have been a sheep.
Yeah,
would
really.
have worked perfectly. And then I think that it's funny this syndrome of thinking it's always luck. There's certainly an element of timing. Interestingly, when we started Aircall like 2013, right? And we started based on new technologies, WebRTC, and then you have Twilio emerging, right? These kind of things. But many companies started at the same time. So yes, we had the right timing. Now, I think we've performed decently well compared to other companies. And that's where I think there was, I think the resilience or the grit a little bit made somewhat of a difference. So just joking aside, it's probably not only luck, and I would say the grit and the never giving up, always trying, falling and standing again. This made a difference for us, at least.
I guess it is luck, but just forcing yourself to be in a position where you can take advantage of that luck and that timing is already quite a lot. Zhong, same question.
I would not say it's luck, because timing, I agree, is everything, but you can determine it. My first company I worked at, we were too early. We were creating mobile apps a year before the iPhone came out. So you can imagine that was just too early, right? They failed miserably. If they were a year later, massive success. When we started Pailhes iOS, we were good, but we didn't scale quick enough because we were late, because we thought, we can do it organically, things will wait. Market doesn't wait. So with Deliverect, actually, when we started, people said, why did you have a big office? Why are you scrappy? I had one desk in IKEA, we built it together, and waited until the moment ripe. We didn't foresee COVID, obviously, but we waited when the market was picking up, and then you go full in, right? So you can determine that. It's not luck, but it's a bit planning, I think. Yeah,
makes sense. So how much of it is down to your investors helping out? Because valuations don't fall out of the sky. So you got the unicorn valuations because an investor believed in you enough to take equity at that valuation. So, but how much of them actually helped you aside from giving that money? How much of value did they actually add, and what kind of value did they bring to the table as sort of outside, parties? Okay.
There's so what we've seen. There's two types of value add, right? One is tactical, and tactical would mean, okay, if I need this kind of exec, I need a chief HR officer, one of my investors found it, great. Or it's more like, I need help here and there, an intro, cool. And the other value add is more strategic, right? It's constantly building, the relationship and driving the strategy. I had that with mostly from Balderton, that was my first investor, pushing us to go to the US. So I moved to the US, spent 5 years there, and I'm very happy. The US is our biggest market, and now we can grow. So we're not anymore European, right? And we could have been in a different trajectory. Maybe I would have stayed in Europe, and we just, So this was impactful. Now, there's a flip side of that. I think some investors are pretty involved in the key strategic choices. It's great, but as well, it's a constraint, right? And you have to balance as well that, what do you want? As a founder, CEO, do you want investors that are going to push you? But sometimes they're going to tell you, I don't agree with this. I think you're wrong, right? Or you want people that are more passive, more tactical, which is easier to leave. So it depends on the personality as well on the founding team.
Yeah.
But yes, I had some value add that was quite.
This also depends on the stage that you're in as a leader or as a company. You know,
Yes.
which investor is the right one depends on the stage you're at.
No, exactly. For instance, the last one is Goldman Sachs, which we took on board because we want to, aiming at become public and stuff. And they've been amazing, like the network they bring. Like we're bringing like new board members. It's really people that would be hard to access without this brand name and this network. So,
Right.
yeah,
Gotcha.
different value add at different stage.
Narek, anything to add?
Yeah, I would, I guess, add from a slightly different perspective, from a tech point of view. I think obviously investors help out with capital and everything else, but I think the immense value I see as a CTO has been the fact that you get connected to a much bigger network, especially when you manage something like technology, G&A, budget, try to understand, because you become a target for every single vendor out there. This company is growing very rapidly. Let's see how we can help. It's just understanding how do I manage cost, whether that's cloud costs, whether that's security-related costs, and what have you. I think it's immensely helpful to have that insight from that point.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. I wrote down my questions, and I really like this one, so I'm very pleased with myself now.
Okay.
What are some of the things you only learned after you became a unicorn? Meaning, do the challenges they're the same challenges, but they just become bigger, or do the challenges really shift to like stuff that you didn't even know would be an issue or something that you would be occupied with pre-unicorn status? It's a good one, huh? Thank you. Thank you. Now you have to answer it as well. Zhong, do you want to take them on?
I have kids, so it's the same. Bigger the kids, bigger the problem. So, your burn is bigger than before. The offices are more. Everyone has high expectations. I think one of the challenges is actually, it's good because you attract a lot of talent because you have that status, but you also attract way more wrong talent. So you have a lot of people inbound, but it's harder to shift. Prior to that, people really need to understand what you do. They want to work for you. They know it's hard. You're not there. You're hustling. But after that, people join you for really wrong reasons, and they have high expectations. And setting that is quite often very difficult. I had conversations where I love the person, and they say, okay, and then they ask phenomenal wages they want. And I said, no, we're a startup. How can you be a startup? You guys are a billion-dollar company, so you should be able to afford that.
Yeah.
And that's quite hard, so it's the shifting.
No, great. Narek?
Yeah, I think, to continue the key theme, you think something is stable, you have everything in control, and then something else happens, from teething to maybe doing something else. But I think, when I think about Glovo, the four-sided marketplace, you have customers, couriers, partners, advertisers. Anything you do in a marketplace impacts everyone. And the bigger the scale, the bigger and more complicated it is, right? Understanding a change you made that you thought would work in Milan somehow breaks things in Nairobi. So I think from that perspective, just understanding that scale. But also as on a leadership level, I think you realize that initially if your team is small, everybody knows you, whatever you say, it's within that group. And then somehow now you have much bigger team, and to use this leaders as giants concept, that obviously anything you say has a big impact, and you have to have that in mind to manage the much bigger team. So I think everything just scales up.
Great. Olivier, you want to add to that?
Yeah. On top of that, I think for each of us, as we were discussing, we kind of got to a scale during COVID. In a sense, it's like you come in a tunnel, and when you're driving a car, it's a nice little car, you get out of the tunnel and you have like a huge truck, or whatever, see that what you want, or a Ferrari or whatever, rather a truck. You say, driving experience is not exactly the same. And for me, what I realized last year, as we really start scaling and got out of COVID, and you realize we have 700 people, and they're everywhere, like Asia and Middle East, Europe, US, and we haven't met them. And so I realized my role is actually very different. I always thought my role as a CEO is really make sure things are done correctly, anything, everything, like HR, product, sales, and stuff. And I want to have an eye on that. And as we got to this unicorn status, or whatever you call it, kind of a form of scale, realize actually the company needs a real CEO role, which is trying to think ahead, trying to understand the big competitive moves, it's a big market we're in, what's happening, and how do I make sure we have a healthy growth. not checking what the specific exec is. My job is making sure the exec team is here and delivering. And so, in a sense, you let go. It's very bad if you start going into details too much, because you do micro optimization. You're just here to align everybody. So this I did not anticipate that.
So stay big picture, but also communicate it very well with everyone.
Exactly, align a lot, and still go into details from time to time. Of course, you have to because it shows example, but not too much. And what used to work before COVID, because you could fix everything. It was a set amount of things. I have my to-do list and I could do it. Now the to-do list is like 5 pages, so I'd rather make sure I have people taking care of the to-do list and they're aligned.
Makes sense. Zhong, you want to add something?
I have actually a funny anecdote about going in the tunnel. So prior to COVID, when we were around 35 people, I promised the team, if we reach certain target, we go to Ibiza. Yeah, was contained. I thought we could have, a couple tickets, a house. After lockdown, we were with 500 people. As you don't want to break promises, this weekend I flew 450 people around the world to Ibiza, rented a hotel. So,
I'm so
smaller,
sorry for you.
easier problems, bigger, massive problems. So that thing got out of hand very quickly. So that's a downside.
Sounds like a massive problem going to Ibiza with 500 people.
For you.
Great. We only have about a minute and a half left, but I do want to leave the audience, especially the aspiring entrepreneurs also online, with your biggest lesson as an entrepreneur, founder of a unicorn so far. You've already shared a few, but if I had to ask one big takeaway, what would it be? Narek?
Yeah, I think big thing for me is, because I spent so much time working for the US tech companies, I think they view Europe as one, right? But I think we in Europe, we have the advantage of the fact that we're so diverse. Every country you go, you drive 2 hours and you're in a completely different environment, different language. And I think that should, I think earlier today the Prime Minister said diversity makes us better. I think actually diversity makes our products better, because you somehow have to build a functionality that works in all these different markets. In the US, it's easy. You develop once and then you can launch in all the states. I think Europe presents that as a challenge, but I would view it as an opportunity to actually make something much, much better, the proposition much, much better.
Preaching to the choir, but yes, well understood. Zhong.
I want to give you guys a practical advice. I think the whole day we have been talking about culture, but nobody told you how to build it, right? So I digged into this because I didn't know how to. So as it's not in the Wauters, when you start your company at small, we started with 2, get a professional culture coach. There's companies doing that. Hire them full-time. Trust me, good investment. Second, set up rituals. That's how you build cultures, right? If you want to move quick, we have a weekly sprint demo with a company. Since the beginning, we did that. And everything is based on the weekly release, from sales to go-to-market to marketing. And for the rest, keep on doing these sessions, right? Keep this culture coach, they do monthly sessions, training of feedback, and quarterly, gatherings, and to reiterate how you need to work together. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you do this right, the rest will sort itself out.
Fantastic. Olivier, very briefly.
Very briefly, I would say, never forget the market is bigger than you think. And it's just you don't see it, right? So whether it's geographic or vertical, I'm always blown away by how deep the tech markets, the SaaS markets are. They're huge. And so I'm so glad today we're in the US, we're in Asia, we're in many different types of verticals, and that fuels the growth. And that don't try to narrow too much. Always think you're underestimated the potential, and try to grasp this potential, touch this potential.
Fantastic pieces of advice. I hope you enjoyed this cooking workshop. Now get to the kitchen and do it yourself. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.